The session I'm doing now is supposed to be called Secular Influences, but I really do not like the word secular at all. I'm a firm believer that everything is sacred, and that everything we do, no matter whether it's for God or for McDonald's or whatever, everything we are doing is sacred. And every moment of our day, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, everything we're spending our money on, everything we're thinking about, it is all sacred. And we've created, especially in America, this divide, separation of church and state, which is really good for some things. And in principle, for politics, it's a great thing. But dividing the secular and the state and sacred and the secular as far as your own lifestyle or compartmentalizing different things into different parts, I am not a believer in that at all. So everything we're talking about here, I want to call it people, places, and things. Is really what we're going to be looking at and what we're going to be doing, kind of in reverse order there, things, places, and people. But all of this is also sacred. And everything we're talking about is sacred. And I think part of the problem why these are toxic influences is because we've created this mindset that they're secular. So we don't have to worry about God when we're dealing with money or things because they're not the same, or we've compartmentalized them. And I want to break down those walls right from the start. Everything we're doing, everything we're talking about is sacred. So like I said, first thing we're going to be doing is getting into the toxic influence of materialism, or the toxic influence of things. And materialism is really born out of a sense of entitlement. This is something that more and more, I believe, every generation kind of builds on the entitlement of the generations before. And each group, each time we come along, I feel like each generation feels they're more entitled than the generations before them. And we have this mindset, I have the right to this, and I have the right to pretty much whatever I want. I deserve all this stuff. Everybody should have the right to their own boat and their own car and their own flat screen TV. We have a right to all these things. No, no. You bought into the lie. But this concept of I deserve this stuff has really created a huge problem. And I want to just to illustrate this problem really quickly, some numbers and a little math, a little money right up the front. 60%, that first blank that you have, 60% of those under 30 years old have already cashed in their retirement. They barely even got started, and already they're cashing in on that because they want something now. They feel like they have a right to whatever it is that they want, and so they're cashing in on their own future to get it now. So kind of like Esau. Earlier on we were talking about that in another class, but Esau did that. He cashed in on his future for something worthless in the present. Not only 60% have cashed in on their retirement, 70% of those under 30 have virtually no cash reserves. So they don't even have enough money. Like, they have to save up money as they go through the week in order to pay rent. There's no reserve. There's no emergency money. There's no emergency funding. There's materialistic mindset, this materialistic culture is preventing people from using wisdom and saving up and being wise. Not only do we use up everything we got, we continue to use up everything we do not have. And there's plenty of others that we could talk about for debt, but I'm going to give you some statistics for the average American household. The average American credit card debt for an American household is $15,611. $15611. $15,611 in debt on their credit cards. And that accounts for, and this is American only, that accounts in America to $882.6 billion of debt just to your credit cards. And most of that's getting, chopped off at 16, 17, 18% that people are paying on that just to have that. The average 2014 mortgage debt is $155,192. Mortgage costs $8.14 trillion. That's how much debt America has to get a bigger house or a better house. We want more. And people are living in houses far beyond what they need. And people are living in houses far bigger or more luxurious than what they need. And they're doing that because of this sense of entitlement. And again, am I saying mortgages are bad? No. But spending more than you need or more than you can afford, for that is probably not something very good. Average 2014 student loan debt. And this isn't just for under 30. This is everybody in America. The average student loan debt for a household is $32,264. 1.13 trillion. And I think of this, I graduated with like $5,000 in debt. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm in debt. But I'm like, hallelujah when I'm seeing these numbers. But the average student loan debt for any household, even people 60, 70 years old, this is an average, $32,264. Now, in 2013, I couldn't find the numbers for 2014. 2013, the average household income in America is $51,939. And this is where I weep, because that's about triple what I make, give or take. But so 51,939, and just those three debts is about $200,000. So if, let's say there was a household, let's say I decided, hypothetically here, me, my wife, and two kids, this is our debt. And we decided we are going to pay this off as quick as we possibly can. So I'm going to get another job, and we're going to live off of my other job. And everything else we make, the $51,939, 100% of that is we're going to dedicate to paying off our debt. So I'm going to get one more job just as we can live, and everything else, our average family makes, is going to pay that off. It will take 6 years, and that's by paying off the most expensive, the highest interest first, and then doing the others, the proper way to do that. So if you average it 14% credit card interest, 3.5% mortgage, and 4.5% for your student loans, which all three of those are really good numbers compared to the average. But let's say those are the average. It would take me 6 years, just over 6 years, to pay that off. That's indentured servitude. Basically, that is 6 years of my life. Currently, I've mortgaged away to have something bigger, better, faster, more prestigious. Materialism has got its grip on our society, and materialism has got its grip on our country. Huge. Absolutely huge. And it's not just individuals. Our government is doing the same thing. We're mortgaging away our future to have these things now. And have all these, we want this and we want that and we want this. Well, nobody can figure out what to cut because everybody's got their little fingers in the pie for something. Well, what the government is doing and what we criticize the government for doing, we as a society and as individuals and as households are doing the same thing. And it's killing us. It's absolutely killing us. If I was to ask the question, does money buy happiness? And that's the next blank, the question mark. Does money buy happiness? Almost everybody is going to answer that, no. I mean, we all have been taught always money does not buy happiness. So if I was going to turn around and ask you, what would make life a little easier? Money. So, I mean, if you were going to ask someone that makes $25,000 a year, what do you think you would need to make a year to be, to live well, to feel secure? They'd probably say $30,000. If you told someone that made $30,000 a year, what do you need? How much money would you need to make annually to live comfortably? 35. If you say 50,000, 55 or 60, whatever it is, we always have this concept, if only I had a little more, things would be better. And if only I had just a touch more, if only I just had just up it just a little bit. God, just help me to get that raise. Help me get that promotion. Just a little bit, and then everything will be okay. We have this mindset. Our culture has fed this into us, and we've bought the lie that a little more is what we need. The problem is when we get the little more, then we need a little more than that. And we get the little more than that, then we just, need a little more. And it's a never-ending cycle that we just continually feed into. That is the toxic influence of things, especially money, but it's the toxic influence of materialism. Jesus said you cannot serve both God and money. And he basically is, original Sunday school question, like any Sunday school question, the kids' first answer always is Jesus, right? Well, Jesus really is the answer. The problem is, how is Jesus the answer? And when we can begin to figure that out, and when we can truly understand it and believe it, the answer to materialism and the answer to the toxic influence of things really is Jesus. Because the world tries to tell us things provide happiness. Things provide happiness. But Jesus blesses. The world tries to tell us that things provide significance. Jesus adopts us. The world tries to tell us that things provide security. Jesus protects. He is truly the answer. The problem is, are we willing to begin to look to him? Begin to look to him and focus on him instead of just focusing on all these other things and all this other stuff that's in the world. Craig Rochelle says, our first problem is a belief problem. Belief overflows into behavior. When we truly change what we believe, then we will gladly change how we behave. And he says this pretty much right after giving some of his own, these stats were mine, but he has some stats in the book, and after he gives those, that's the first thing he says. We talk about the negative influence of materialism, but the thing is, it's ultimately, it's a belief problem. Do I truly believe that Jesus is my blessing, or is blessing me? Do I truly believe that Jesus has adopted me? Do I truly believe that Jesus is what ultimately can keep me safe? Because a lot of times we'll talk about how much we believe that, and then we go out spending all our money on all these things, proving the lie to what we just said, and proving the lie to that. The thing is, it's easy to talk about that, and it's easy to get away from the negative influencers or talk about the negative influences. Problem is, it's everywhere in society. When I'm a prayer, and Pastor Carrie and I were just talking about this, when I'm a prayer, I'm a pacer, and he's the same way. We like to pace. When we're praying, when I'm worshiping, I'm going to be moving around. I'm going to be walking back and forth. Well, I learned early on, if that's the case, the best way for me to spend my personal time in prayer is to walk and to actually do prayer walks. And that's not good, the best way for everybody, but for me to walk around. And so when I first started doing this, I would do, in the summertime or in good weather, I would just walk, around the street or in the community or in the neighborhood. And then if it was bad weather in the wintertime, I was going to go to the mall and walk in the mall. Took me about 3 weeks to realize I am not a good prayer walker in the mall. Okay? Because the problem is, I'm walking around and I'm walking and I'm passing J.C. Penney and I see that and I want that. And then I'm walking a little further and I'm passing the GameStop or the Eastman Sports, and I'm looking in there and I'm like, oh man, I don't have that game yet. That game just came out. I got to go to that game. And then I'm going by a little further and I'm passing by Route 21 or JW or some of these other clothing stores. I'm like, my clothes are so old. I need some new clothes. And I realize here I am trying to pray, and here I am trying to spiritually feed myself, and the environment that I willingly placed myself in to spiritually feed myself is bombarding me with lies and bombarding me with, you need to get this, and you need to have that, and where are we placing ourselves? You know what I mean? So I'm moving from the things to the places because the two really do tie in together, and a lot of times we can't avoid it. If I'm shopping for groceries, I have a very limited supply of where I'm going to go. I can go to Target, I can go to Walmart, I can go to a local mom and pop store, I can go to Price Chopper. No matter where I go, there's going to be music playing that's not godly. No matter where I go, there's going to be advertisements telling me to buy this, to get that. So some of it you cannot avoid. I mean, you simply cannot avoid it. You cannot get away from it. But other things are toxic influences that we choose to place on ourselves. And there's 5 of these. Where am I? 4 of these that I listed are current cultural influences. 4 questions. The 5th one that I originally had was internet, and I pulled that out. But really, no, I do have internet. Which one did I pull out? Whatever. There's 4 of them. 4 influences. I can't remember what the 5th one is. 4 influences. What movies, what music, what internet, what commercials. So what movies am I watching? What music am I listening to? What internet sites am I visiting? And what commercials am I seeing? These are things that 90% of the time, this is a willful, I am placing myself into this environment. And I am placing myself into this. And so what I want to do really quickly here is I want to see how many of you guys know this list is going to be a couple weeks old, but raise your hand if you were in track 1. Raise your hand. Whoa, nobody's raising their hands. Raise your hand if you were part of track 1. The fear, that. Okay, you guys are on the first, you're track 2. So now the forgiveness, and what was the other one in there? Anger. Forgiveness and anger. If you were forgiveness and anger, raise your hand. Okay, so you guys are team 1. Yeah. Okay? Now, the fear and envy. Raise your hand if you're a part of that. You guys are team 2. We're going to do a very brief Family Feud type of thing. I'm going to ask track 1 to list what were the box office top 10 movies. And when you get one correct, I'm just going to mark it here and tell you what it is. Once you've gotten, you go, and then team 2 will go, and then team 1 goes. This is 2 weeks old. So this is the current top 10 box office movies this year, right now. What? Okay, so team 1, American Sniper. You got number 1. I'll just repeat their answers, okay? All right, so team 2. Hobbit is not one of the top 10. No, it's this current, the weekly top 10. So I'm sorry, I should have. This is a weekly top 10. Okay, it's 2 weeks old because I created this list 2 weeks ago, so it might not have. Okay, come on, our church is a movie theater. All right, team 1. Are you part of team 1? You're team 2, so team 1's going. Gone Girl, no, you got one strike. Team 2. Exodus, no, you should have gone with her, Selma. I'm marking Selma, but you're getting a strike. Team 1, Selma. All right. Well, it's different answers are going at the same time. So team 1, I'm going to call this 1-1, but you guys will get a strike as well. So team 1, what's another movie? SpongeBob. That's too recent. It didn't come out in time. So Into the Woods. Yes, that is one of them. That was number 10. So you've got number 1, number 8, and number 10. Team 2. Taken 3. Yes, Taken 3 is one of them. Woo woo! All right, team 1. Night at the Museum is not one of them. So you got a strike. Team 2. Yes. All right, do you guys give up? All right, so number 1 was American Sniper. Number 2 was The Boy Next Door. Number 3 was Paddington. Number 4, The Wedding Ringer. Number 5, Taken 3, which you guys got. Number 6, The Imitation Game. Number 7, Strange Magic. Number 8, Selma. Number 9, Mordecai. And number 10 was Into the Woods. So those are the top 10. We go to church in a movie theater. I'm glad you guys are paying attention to God and not the titles of the movies, because that's really cool. That is encouraging to me. I mean, it's encouraging to me. But I just want to read I've picked those top three: American Sniper, The Boy Next Door, and Paddington. Okay? Three very different types of movies. But I went online and got like movie reviews. If I'm going to watch this movie, before I do that, before I'm going to go and see a movie, I want to know a little bit about what the movie's about. Okay? None of these reviews are mine. So, okay. So American Sniper, this review is the online website called Parents Guide. And American Sniper says many scenes of military conflict and violent acts in a realistic manner with detail and blood effects. Multiple people, including women and children, are shown on the screen being shot, killed, and injured. Scenes depict soldiers forcibly entering homes and threatening family members. A man tortures a boy with an electric drill and eventually kills the boy, drilling into his head. The man later kills the boy's father and dismembers his mother's arm. Frequent use of the F word over 100 times, along with other sexual references, scatological slang, crude anatomical terms, religious exclamations, and as a Christian I'd call that blasphemy, and ethnic slurs. This is the number one movie that's out right now. And this is what a secular review said about that movie. This is a secular website said about that movie, what I just listed. What are we allowing into our lives? I'm not going to ask by raise of hands who saw an American Sniper. That'd be a bad time to ask that question. But what are we willfully subjecting ourselves to? Dear God, take that demon out of that boy. Now, The Boy Next Door, this is by Plugged In. Plugged In is a Christian review. So this is going to be more of a Christian bias to it. However, everything I've seen from previews of Plugged In, I have no desire of seeing it anyways. But The Boy Next Door, multiple sex scenes, one bordering on rape. Mostly involving high school students. Multiple include nudity. One main character nearly kills another kid, banging his head into a locker and against the floor repeatedly before someone pulls him off. A woman is killed and her bloody corpse is shown. Another murder is implied by blowing up a vehicle. People are shot, bloodied, hit, kicked, tied up, bonked by large pieces of metal, kneed in the groin, and crushed by the live action version of Acme safes. Which, if you think Wile E. Coyote dropping on, that's what they're talking about. More than a dozen uses of the F word, also the P, C, A, H, D, and P words. I'm not sure what the P, C, A, H, and D, those words are. However, there's a bunch of words there. God is blasphemed more than a dozen times. And then another review ended with, this movie is just plain horrible. That was a secular ending. But this is the number 2 movie. More people are seeing this pretty much currently, or 2 weeks ago, than pretty much any other movie that's out there, except for the one they're drilling into the boy's head. I mean, seriously? This is what we're watching. This is what we're subjecting ourselves to. Why are we doing this? Good news, number 3 was Paddington, and Paddington is based off a children's book. So, here we go. You really had to try, and I really had to, but I just took like a sentence from here, a sentence from there, again from Parents Guide, so this is a secular thing. But comic use of torture, repeated comic acts of accidental vandalism. So it might not be a good movie to let your 3-year-old child watch because he's going to try to flood the bathroom. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Cross-dressing is followed by a gay prison joke. Taking multiple shots of hard liquor beyond intoxication is portrayed in a positive and in a comic light. So here, drinking, even in a kid's movie, drinking to an excess is cool. What are we subjecting ourselves to? What are we allowing ourselves to continue? And if we had time, what about movies? We just did movies. What about music? Some of the music that we're listening to. What are we allowing ourselves to hear? And we talk about the envy, the anger. We talk about the fear. We talk about all these other sins, and we want to have victory over these sins, yet we're listening to trash that is just injecting envy and fear and jealousy and lust right into our minds. Now, some of that we can't avoid. Like I said, if you're going to Walmart or Target or Price Chopper, you're going to be hearing whatever music they're playing. A lot of times, though, that's not nearly as bad as some of the music we choose to listen to ourselves. So, anyways, the room got a little heavy. What about the internet? The internet, basically, I looked up the top 10 sites for the internet. Almost all of them are search engine type sites, Amazon type sites, or YouTube type sites. In fact, Google, Amazon, and YouTube are all in the top 5. Okay? So basically, those in themselves are not good or bad. It depends on what you're using them for. Thing is, Amazon is all about spending money and getting more. So here we are once again, back into the materialism, back into the what am I feeding to myself? And I got to admit, there have been times, the bookshelves that I have in my house, I needed newer bookshelves. I needed more bookshelves. So why do I need more bookshelves? I need more books. I want more books. But forget that. The point is, I went looking on Amazon for a new bookshelf. About 2 hours later, I bought a bookshelf after browsing through this and that and looking here and that. I was basically a 2-hour just wasting time, wishful thinking, and feeding that materialism and feeding that greed and feeding the envy and the desire right back into my life, even on a fairly innocuous site like Amazon. And how many of us are doing that, even to the fairly safe, the commercials we see. I go to worship and I put on YouTube and I'm listening to YouTube, and after the one song, before the next one starts, a commercial came up for American Sniper. Do they really think Christians are going to go watch American Sniper? Apparently so, because those are market driven. And it's he said it, not me. I'm not going there, though I might like to. But this is just, once again, what are we feeding into our lives? And what are we allowing into our lives? There are 3 questions that we really need to ask. And 3 questions, whether it's about a movie, whether it's about the music we're seeing, whether it's about the TV shows, the commercials that play during football, or whatever. What is it? These 3 questions. First question, the most important one, am I being entertained by sin? First question, no matter what it is we're spending our time on or allowing for entertainment, am I being entertained by sin? If you can answer no to that question, the next question would be, is this pleasing to God? Because some things might not necessarily be sin in and of themselves, but me watching this, would God be pleased with the fact that I'm watching this? Would God be pleased with the fact that I'm spending my time doing this? Would God be pleased that I've chosen to go here or to go there or to do this? Am I being entertained by it? Is this pleasing to God? And then the third question, does this draw me closer to Christ? I have seen one of those movies on that top 10 list, Selma, and I can honestly say that movie motivated me to walk closer with God. The movie was not perfect. There were still things that I wish they didn't have or didn't. It was a fairly realistic portrayal. However, when that movie was done, I loved God more. Just the encouragement that came from men of the faith that had walked before us and the sacrifice that they did. So some of those movies, someone might not be perfect, but Selma is also, showing history that was a very imperfect part of our past. I've seen Unbroken. And for Unbroken, I would say I was not being entertained by sin. It was good. I thought the book was a much more godly presentation than the movie. Again, I'm just giving a slight movie review for you guys, or book review. The book talks about 3 different struggles that man had to overcome. The movie deals with 2 of those. He struggled surviving at sea, and then he struggled as a prisoner of war. The third struggle was once he came home and had to normalize in America and just get back into it. His struggle was with himself and the guilt and the anger and the bitterness and the hatred that had grown up. And the way he had overcame that struggle is by going to a Billy Graham crusade and getting saved, dedicating his life to God and committing his life to helping troubled boys. None of that shows up in the movie. Hollywood intentionally cut out the last third of the book. Movie was still good, but the gospel presentation that he intentionally had, he insisted was a part of the book, never made it in the movie, which is probably why the movie didn't come out till after he died. That said, once again, we are really heavy here, and I love to just lighten this up. 3 things we need to ask: am I being entertained by sin? Is this pleasing to God? And does this draw me closer to Christ? I wrote something. This is about probably almost 10 years ago. I was at Barnes & Noble's and I was reading, and as I was walking to the bathroom, along the side, as I'm walking to the bathroom, I'm passing all the the rows of magazines. And it was one of those, I'm walking by and I see myself doing this. And I intentionally said no, you know what I mean? And looked away. And when I did that, and as I'm going to the bathroom, the verse came to my mind in Genesis, where God is basically cursing Eve. And it says, he will rule over you, but your desire will be to master him. And that verse came to my mind. And as I'm in the bathroom, and as I, going out from there, I began thinking, what on earth did that verse have to do with what I had just saw? So I went back again to that area, and I started looking at some of the titles of the men's interest magazines. And the titles basically are 4 G's. Everything that men's interest magazines have to do with are basically 4 things: girls, gadgets, guns, and games. Whether it's sports or entertainment, girls, gadgets, guns, and games. Basically, every men's interest article of any men's interest magazine is going to cover those 4 things, right? So if the guys are 4 H or G's, the girls would be 3 H's. So I turn around and walk over to the girls section, and I would say every article could basically be summed up with 3 H's. Heroes, how-tos, and hooks. Heroes, how-tos, and hooks. An example, I'm going to create one. Give me a name of a very attractive female actress right now. Come on. What's it? Lisa Dovey. All right. Lisa Dovey's. Here, you ready? You are now the actress on the cover of Cosmo magazine. All right? Lisa Dovey's 5 steps to a slimmer, sexier body he cannot resist. Okay? Right there. The hero, Lisa Dovey, how to, 5 steps, the hook to the body he cannot resist. All the guy stuff is about check out these hot girls. All the girl stuff is about how can I be hot so he'll check me out. And that's just, and forgive me if I'm I'm throwing this out there. I'm a guy. This is coming from a guy's perspective. But while I was doing this, and my sister called me. So I began bouncing some of the thoughts that were coming up into my head, and I began bouncing them off of her to get a girl's perspective. And so, we began talking about this. And as we talked about this, I walked out of Barnes & Noble's, walked across the parking lot, walked into Walmart, and began walking around, because I tend to walk while I'm on the phone as well. But so if you're ever calling me, probably I'm walking somewhere and doing something. But anyways, I'm walking around, and I was walking around in the makeup and beauty section. And as we started walking around in this area, I started reading off prices of some of the things. And I'm like, well, do you use this? Do you spend money on this? Or do you use this? And the two of us together sat down and figured out how much money each month she's spending to make herself look more beautiful so that she can get the guy, even though that's not the type of girl my sister is. But it's so much fed into her culture. It is so much fed into us by all these other influences. It is so much fed into us that she began saying, well, I spend so much money on this. And I don't get that hardly ever. Or it was always hardly ever. She hardly ever gets anything, but it's never. And began thinking about, and there was a lady that was there. There was a lady that was kind of overhearing my end of the conversation, and she's like, I wish I only spent that much money. And so it began to realize the culture we've created that men lust after women and women desire to get men to lust after them has ruined our relationships. It has created a financial, destructive society, and no matter where you go, it's there. This is everywhere we're going. And so all three of these, again, the things and the places ties into the relationships. Because most of the chronic bad relationships that we do have are a product of envy over the things and is a product of the what we are taking into our lives and what we are allowing to influence. So bad relationships all flow out of this. And there's basically three types of bad relationships that I want to talk with. First of all, the chronic critics. Second one is the controllers. And the third one is the tempters. The chronic critic is the person who's seen those images and they have such a low self-esteem that they need to bring everyone else down to their level. And they're so hurting inside that all they can do is talk negative about everybody else. And by allowing these people and allowing this type of relationship into your life, you are going to become more and more critical yourself. And the more we spend time with critical people, the more critical we will become ourselves if we don't do something about it. Again, for all three of these, if we don't do something about it. The second group of people are the controllers. These are the ones that they've bought into the lie that they need to be bigger, they need to be better, they need to have this. And the way they do that is controlling anything and everything they can. And there are people that will try to manipulate you and run you. They'll control you in different ways. It might be through abuse. It might be through verbal manipulation. It might be through trying to get your pity. Whatever it is, there are people that they're not satisfied unless they're running your life for you in one way or another. And the third group is the tempters. These are the ones, often these are Christians, but their conscience has been so seared because they've allowed these influences into their life so much that they no longer feel any guilt or shame at going and seeing that or going and doing that. There's no shame there, and they wonder why you would feel shame about it. And so they're constantly tempting you or constantly trying to get you to go somewhere you know you shouldn't go, or get you to do something or participate in something or drink something that you know you shouldn't be doing. All three of these are, once again, just another way that we have these toxic influences. We have all of these same things are coming back again, and this is a self-repeating or self-digging loop that we just get in, and it's a cycle. And the further we go, the more we lose, the more we, are going to lose in the future. And this is a cycle that repeats around us. So what do we do, or how do we need to react to these toxic influences? And did I have blanks for this? I didn't underline anything. Okay. Go ahead and, I will not let you talk to me or treat me that way. If someone's got a sailor's mouth, and you find that you begin to start thinking with sailor's thoughts, you begin, whether or not you're actually saying them, if those types of thoughts are coming into your mind, then you need to do something to say, this is beginning to influence me. I can't let this influence me. I appreciate, I respect you. I want you in my life. But the way you're talking is influencing the way I think, and I can't have that. So please stop. Are you willing to do it? Does it take bold? It's an act of love for them to say, I am not going to tolerate this way that you are talking to me, this way that you are treating me. And this is just, that's just one example. I mean, if these are controllers, I'm not going to let you control my life like this. I'm not going to let you talk to me that way. Don't try to guilt trip me into enabling you to do whatever. Don't try to guilt trip me into put your foot down. The second thing, and this is especially for the tempters, I will not be going there with you. I was invited by another individual immediately after church to go watch one of these movies, and I'd already done this review, so I said, no way. I am not going to go see that movie, not a chance. I already know what's in that movie, and I'm going to talk about it. I can't go there. But I am not going to go there. And now, understand, we need to have people in our life that we are witnessing to and that we are evangelizing. We need to befriend non-Christians because the best way to get a non-Christian to become a Christian is to get them to have Christian friends. So it is important for us to do that. However, who's influencing who? And which way is the influence going? We need to be intentional with every relationship we have. We need to be focused with every relationship we have to make sure that by God's empowerment, we're the one leading this relationship. Because, I mean, having a bunch of non-Christian friends is no good if we're the one following them. Having non-Christians is great if we are leading them somewhere. And there's a huge difference. So how are we allowing this relationship to influence us? Or are we being the influencer in the relationship? And the fourth, the final thing, and again, this is 90% of the time, probably more, should not go to this level. But there are certain times where you need to say, I need to get away from you. There are certain relationships, if you've tried and you've done your best to say, I can't hear that, I can't go there, and it's just not happening. And then you need to say, I'm breaking this relationship off. And this, again, is an extreme measure, but it needs to be one that at times we need to be willing to take. Because what's the point of having evangelistic non-Christian friendships if they lead us to hell? And ultimately, that's where, if we allow these influences to control our life or to run our life, that's where we are going to be going. And Craig Rochelle, along with this last thing, sometimes people might be like, well, that's not really fair. That's not really just. How come you can say what you want, but you won't let me say what I want? Or whatever. I mean, there's whatever the excuse might be. Craig Rochelle says, our Savior loved everyone equally, but he did not treat everyone equally. There is a huge difference. There's a big difference, and that's on the side. With that, if I'm with another Christian and they've got a sailor's mouth, I'm going to tell them, shut up. You need to clean out your mouth. That is not God-honoring. If I'm with a non-Christian and they got a sailor's mouth, I'm going to be much more willing to put up with it to love them into the kingdom. I mean, this is not a legalistic thing. This is a love thing. And this is not about legalism. This is not about, don't ever go see. If it takes, I went and saw Exodus. I was not a big fan of Exodus. I probably should have done a review first. However, there's a guy that I witnessed to who his job basically, he works at Uno's, but he went to college and he's running a blog that's beginning to become his job that is a movie critic. He went to school to be a movie critic. Witnessing to him has always been about movies. And I'll go see Exodus. I'll go see Noah, even though I'd rather not, simply because after going and see Noah, I can turn around and talk to him about the conflict within Noah's life between justice and mercy, between judgment and grace. And there was a huge conflict in Noah's life about that. So I can turn around and talk to a friend. So I'm willing to put up with a little bit of that for a non-Christian I would never put up with for a Christian. Because the way I treat one is different than the way I treat another. The way I hold one the standard I hold to one is different than a standard I hold to another. Jesus did the same thing. He had the 3 that he held to an incredibly high standard. And then he had the 12, and then he had the 70. The religious leaders, he talked to them a lot differently than he talked to the average person. Why is that? Because they're supposed to be better. So he held them to a high standard because they claimed to hold that standard. If someone claims to be a follower of Christ and they're not following Christ, I'm going to call them on it. That's part of, developing healthy relationships. If someone claims to not be a follower of Christ, then I need to be more concerned with loving them in the kingdom than insisting why are you cleaning a fish you haven't caught? You know what I mean? Why are we trying to legalistically create in them an influence that they're not even hooked yet? They're not even, part of the family. So the standards there, I wanted to say that as a close, because these standards that we're talking about and the line that we need to draw can't be the exact same line for every single relationship we have. And ultimately, it needs to be Spirit-led, and it needs to be Spirit-guided, and it needs to be done based on love and under the leading of the Holy Spirit, and under the godly biblical principles that we find through Jesus and through the way he demonstrated that for us. So that's that.